Hi, this is Sharon from thekembo.com, and today Gabriel and I are going to teach you how to make Towerbusters. We've distributed Towerbusters all over California, and it's such a wonderful activity. I want you to get to enjoy it the way we have. The parasitic world order has decided we're going to have a heat wave for Thanksgiving. We've decided that they're not. They're going to make us all crazy for Thanksgiving and make us have family fights? No way. They want to bombard us with deadly energy? We say no. Let's make Towerbusters. Take some time on your Thanksgiving weekend to try a new project. We're going to show you exactly how we do it. So it's very simple to make Towerbusters. I have another video on Vimeo that teaches how to make basic little Orgonite pyramids with a crafting resin, and I've explained in that video how to adapt the recipe to make Towerbusters. But I know you all want to see exactly how we do it, so I'm going to show you the materials and Gabriel will build them for you, and then we're going to go outside and pour them. So we're going to start with some quartz. Now you only need nuggets of quartz, and I'm showing you this strand because this is the easiest way to get small quartz nuggets, is you can buy these strands, often available in crystal stores, and you can just drop a few of these into each cavity to make your Towerbuster. Here are a couple other examples of quartz that will work great in a Towerbuster. They don't have to be pretty. We are looking for function. You're going to be using these to throw into the environment, put in your yard, neutralize cell towers in your neighborhood, so they don't have to be pretty. This is just a piece of rough quartz. You don't need to use nice points or anything like that. This is rose quartz in the rough form as well. You can actually hammer these into small pieces and get little nuggets like this. So we've actually started getting these strands and taking them off the strands because it's the easiest way to get the quartz. Now we also put a little selenite into our pieces. Now I have hammered it into some small little pieces and powders. This is what it looks like when you start out. And we have found that if you powder the quartz and selenite, it can fall through the resin to the bottom and leave holes in your Orgonite. So if you want them in a powder form, you're going to need to mix them with your resin. That can be messy, so we do a little bit less than a powder. We'll do like little shards like this, which don't fall through. And you're going to want copper coils, so you're going to need copper wire like this, and Gabriel's going to put them all together and demonstrate how to make the coils and how to build the Towerbusters. And you're also going to want some aluminum shavings, and aluminum works great. The finer the better. There's a lot of arguments online about what materials to use in Orgonite. Aluminum, brass, iron, they all work. And George Ritchell has an article on this, which he promised me he's going to put back on his website, organizeafrica.com, that shows the energy signatures of the different metals in Orgonite and how they all work almost equally. So there might be subtle differences in how you feel around it, but when you're neutralizing cell towers in the environment, aluminum's great. It's lightweight. Your Towerbusters are light, cheap, easy to make, and you could take buckets of them out there and start throwing.
The point is it must be fine metal, whichever you use, just as long as the shavings themselves are as small and fine as possible.
So when we're done today, we're going to have Towerbusters like this. You can make them just like ours. And there's other kinds of Towerbusters out there. Here's one made by George Ritchell of Orgonite Africa. It's really similar to ours. It just uses a slightly different resin. He uses the fine aluminum shavings. Here's a really cool fancy Towerbuster that a friend made for us, a supporter of our work, and somebody who's contributed to our efforts. This is LA King's Orgonite.
It's not making them play any better, but it looks nice.
So, I mean, he knows what a fan Gabriel is, so he made special LA King's Orgonite. But, you know, for the Towerbusters we're going to make, we don't need fancy stuff like that. They're just going to look like this, and we're going to use a very cheap laminating resin like a surfboard resin. You can use Bondo, you can use anything. You can use the fancy resin too, the epoxy resin. Anything that you like is fine.
As long as it catalyzes.
Right. So now Gabriel's going to show you how we put them together, and then we're going to go outside and pour.
So we're going to start the process now of assembling each cavity of this mold. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it in stages. Now you can just throw everything in there, but you know, all bets are off as to what it's going to look like in the end. But the goal here is to get smooth Towerbusters with no holes in them or as few holes as possible. and to make sure all the contents cohere together. So what we're going to do is we're going to get aluminum, and again, as fine shavings as possible. This is pretty much as fine as you can get when it comes to aluminum. And just fill each cavity just a little less than halfway, perhaps, like maybe a third of the way or so. And make sure you don't press down on the metals too much. Like we used to stack these trays when we were done with them to take them to our area where we would be pouring, and that's not a good idea because that can inhibit the flow of resin into the cavity, and then you end up with TBs that have a bunch of holes in them, and you don't want that. So the idea is to just make everything as nice as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. You know, you don't have to measure things. These aren't fancy decorative pieces. We're going for strictly functionality here. And I'm almost done. Just this last one. Really, that's good enough. Okay, so that's 1 dozen right there. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I've taken the quartz nuggets off of their little cord there that they come with on the necklace, and I'm going to put just a few, like 3 or 4 or 5, you know, whatever you feel. Put those just right in the center. Just drop them there. You don't need to have that much. The metals are what's going to be doing a lot of the work. The quartz is just kind of there to provide that energy, and of course the piezoelectric effect, as Ken Rolla has talked about basically on every interview we've ever done with him. So it's very easy. Does not have to be precise. If you put in too much, that's not a problem. Now it's time to make copper coils. The spool that this comes in, you get a lot of coils out of this thin gauge wire, but it has to be cut down. So
We use 20 gauge.
Yeah, we use 20 gauge for the Towerbusters.
It's easy to coil, it's very light.
Now, what you want to do is cut with the wire cutters. You're going to want to cut a segment of about 4 inches or so, like so. Then you have this piece. Now, if you have an old pencil that you don't care about or a wood dowel, take that. As you can see, I've used this many, many, many times. And you place the coil on there, place the wire there, and you sort of use your fingers together, working together, to just sort of twist that around. Be careful for the tips of the wire. They can be pointy. They can cut you if you're not careful. And once you've bent them most of the way around, like so, you take your wire cutter and you just kind of finish the coil. Those 2 ends, just bend them so that you finish the coil, more or less. Then you just kind of gently pull it off. Coils don't have to look perfect, so it doesn't matter if they get slightly bent in the process. But you should have the finished product looking something like that.
Does clockwise or counterclockwise matter?
It does not. Some people will say they do, some people will insist that they do, but we have not found that there is any difference between clockwise or counterclockwise. There technically doesn't even need to be a coil in there at all. It's just the metals, the quartz, and the resin that's necessary. We like to add copper coils because they repel negative ions, and broadcasting those will help to further clean the skies. So,
And they increase the electromomentum.
that's true.
And we do them clockwise, by the way, just for good measure.
We've had lots of success with this design. We've been doing it for 3.5 years now, so what do they say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. now, that's it for the ingredients that go in the middle. Now it's time to finish off the cavities with the second layer of aluminum. And turn your Wi-Fi off when you do this.
Good idea.
And your cell phone. I know that many people are hopelessly addicted to these devices and want to hear everything else other than what they have to do, but
They etherically attack Orgonite makers and gifters.
Yeah.
When we're out gifting, they attack us. Sometimes when we're making Orgonite, they attack us. And you will wonder, why are you in a bad mood all of a sudden? Well, perhaps it's that little device programming that bad mood into you.
and you'll see sometimes if you turn that device off, that bad mood will melt away like that.
And the headache, too.
Yeah. So, yeah, best to not make Orgonite when you're in a bad mood. I mean, it's not going to prevent it from working, but it's just not a good thing to put into the pieces. Better to have a clear head for this work, and definitely keep the devices off when you're gifting. That is a no-brainer. Looks good. You know, it's inevitable that you'll have some scraggly bits that stick out. We try and flatten them before the resin catalyzes, but it's not always perfect. So there it is. A dozen Towerbusters with all the ingredients in them, ready to go. Now we're ready to get cracking with the resin.
Okay, we're ready to pour our Towerbusters. So for the resin we're using, we have figured out that about 25 ounces will fill 9 cavities. You're going to have to figure out for yourself how much to put in. These are about 3 ounces, and so what with the extra materials in there, it's going to be just a little less than 3 ounces of resin each. And your resin, whatever you use, will tell you exactly how much catalyst to use. So based on the temperature, which now is in the mid-60s up here, we know how much catalyst we need to use, which is about 10 milliliters per the 25 ounces. So we're going to get started on pouring. Let me show you my respirator. This is an MSA respirator you can get on Amazon. This is very good to protect you from fumes from resin.
Not related to NSA.
Hopefully not. Yes, they're listening to you through the respirator. And to clean up, if you don't want to have to throw out these plastic tubs and you want to, not fill up the landfill with plastic, you can use acetone to clean them. This is just nail polish remover, but this one's 100% acetone, so it's really strong. You can get it at Sally Beauty Supply. And we try to be conservative with the paper towels. The environmental issues with making Orgonite are far outweighed by the benefits gained by the air cleaning qualities. So yeah, there's a little petroleum product in here, and yes, there's a little plastic, but this is such a benefit to the environment that we just do our best to minimize waste while making it. So get your area set up, make sure you have a level surface to pour, and we are going to get started on filling the cavities.
Go. You have 1.5 minutes left. The resin is starting to change color to an iridescent green. This means that the catalyst is starting to act on the resin. Still needs a bit more stirring though to be fully assimilated in there. "10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sharon wipes off the stir stick, saves it for another pass. Now it's time to pour. Now this resin catalyzes fairly quickly, so she does a little bit in each cavity, not too much, we don't want it to overflow. She will end up making another couple passes.
Yeah, just we get all of this.
Now remember, only the first 9.
All right, thank you.
That's 9. Now we go back. And as bubbles, as air bubbles are removed from the resin, they pop and the resin sinks back down. That space has to be filled up again. So all those air bubbles will eventually pop, and hopefully there will not be any exposed parts of the resin. Now we're going to tap the cavities so that those pieces of metal that are sticking up are back underneath the surface as much as possible. Makes it easier for later so that the tops are smooth.
So we've just poured our first 9 TBs out of the 3 trays we're making, the 3 dozen. And I actually forgot to mention you're going to need gloves. So here's a few things you need to know before you get started. As you saw, I was wearing gloves. I already told you about my respirator. And keep in mind, this stuff can be pretty sticky and messy. So as you can see, I'm wearing clothes I don't care about. So definitely prepare your area, put down a tarp, do whatever you need to do to make sure to keep the mess contained. We've done our first 9, and now we're just going to go ahead and finish this batch, and by the end of the day we'll have 3 dozen new Towerbusters. We just finished pouring our 3 pans of Towerbusters. We just made it before the temperature dropped to below 60, because to work with resin it's got to be above 60, ideally in the 70s, but we made it work. You're just going to need to look at the directions on your resin and adjust the amount of catalyst for the temperature. It's all going to be on the package. So here are our finished trays, and I put one of them down here to cure, and the reason I put it to the side and not on the tarp is because these trays get very hot, and they can actually get hot enough to melt the tarp. So these are on a wooden surface, that's on a wooden surface, and so while they're doing their thing and catalyzing, they won't burn anything. They won't melt anything. So stay away from them for a while, let them catalyze. This particular resin takes 8 hours, although we may be able to pop them out much sooner than that. But that's what we're doing now. So again, follow the directions. Bondo works, laminating resin, epoxy resin, any catalyzing resin will work for your Towerbusters. And thank you for watching, and I hope that you get started making your own Towerbusters and gifting your community.
And I second that.